Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Easthampton Rules and Government Relations Committee meeting of, what is the day today? October 14th, 2021. It's 6 p.m. This meeting is being conducted remotely via an executive order from Governor Baker back in the spring of 2021. And it'll be up on Easthampton Media and YouTube and what have you. Okay. So since we last met, just to sort of recap where we were, I see Omar's here. So for Omar's benefit, when we last met, we had a series of conversations that basically we're talking about drawing precinct boundaries and good and bad ways to do that. There were a few of us who thought that some of the current precinct boundaries, and I think probably the biggest voice about this, but JP, I think, kind of agreed with me here. I think Dan, you sort of did too. That some of the boundaries made it in weird ways where like somebody on one end of a relatively small downtown street would be in one precinct and somebody on the other end would be in another. So there's a couple examples that we brought up. One of them was Everett Street, which goes from 2 into 3 and then back into 2. We talked about Pleasant Street, where previously like the mill side of Pleasant Street was in 2, but the side of Pleasant Street where the Pleasant Green and all of that stuff was in 1, despite the fact that it was actually disconnected by a big river from the rest of 1, and kind of I think culturally and socioeconomically probably a lot closer to the mills and New City than.
Can we see that map, Tom? Would that maybe help to show the prior?
Yeah, sure. We could switch back to that.
Yeah.
So those were like really the two areas that I was kind of talking about. You can see like south of Lower Mill Pond, there's this part of Everett Street and some of the surrounding streets that's in 2. That kind of like just hugs the pond. And I always, when I'm in that, like when I'm talking to people from that neighborhood, I always find that confusing and difficult to communicate with people about, what precinct they're actually in, which in previous years is actually kind of determined where you vote. So that's just been confusing. And then again, I've always felt like for a long time, I really thought like that like Terrace View and Arlington and Berkeley streets and all that was part of 2, because it feels like it's part of 2, but it actually turns out it's part of 1, even though it's totally cut off from everything else. And so those were 2 things that I kind of didn't love. And so I had sort of asked about, what it would take to adjust those, to move, Pleasant Green and Terrace View into 2, and to bring all of Everett Street and the surrounding neighborhoods into 3. And we sort of spun our wheels for an extended period of time, talking about different ways that we could potentially do that, before realizing that we really should just ask the folks at the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office if they could make a map that that made those moves. And so they came back an alarmingly fast. Like before I was even out of the shower in the morning, they already had a new map, which is the one that we had sent out. So I guess what we need to do right at this point is, talk about this and then take a vote on whether or not this is the map we want to. Oh, hey, JP. Whether this is the map that we want to move forward with. I'll start, and then anyone who wants to say something, definitely want to hear what you have to say. For me, I like this map because for me, it preserves more of like when I think about neighborhoods in Easthampton, it's splitting up less neighborhoods. There was never going to be a map that was perfect. And there's definitely parts of this down on East Street and Hendrick Street that are a little wacky for sure. But I think that when it comes to like the core downtown neighborhoods, I think that they're arranged in a way that is now a little bit more sensible and a little bit more understandable. I think it hews closer to sort of the water barriers that functionally affect how people move around town and how we developed the town in the first place, the city, sorry. And so to me, I think it's more intuitive in terms of keeping more neighborhoods represented by a single counselor. And so I like it more. That is my thought, but I want to know what other people think.
Dan has this.
Oh, hi, Dan.
First of all, I do like this map, but I wanted to echo Barbara in saying that I don't think we should make any more changes. I think we either accept this map or go back to the old one. I think that's our choices tonight. And if we want to make more changes, it will delay this whole process. And it's not anybody's fault. It's the fault that we didn't get this. We got this a month late. But if we're going to make the changes, we have to do it now because we only do it every 10 years. I have to hear from Omar because this is his district, but 2 looks better to me. I like the idea of geographic boundaries, the rivers and everything. And we're never going to avoid things like what's happening on East Street or Pleasant Street. And that's just going to happen. But I like the fact that the neighborhoods near the pond are all together. So I prefer this map over the other one because I think it does what we all talked about last week. Yeah. I'd love to hear how Omar feels about it because 2 is the most affected. The numbers are still good in the sense that they're fairly close to the same in all of them.
Yeah. And just before, like, I just want to say, I completely agree with you, Dan, that we no longer have time to do any more optimization on this. So it's kind of accept this moving forward or go back to the one we had before. And, better luck in 10 years. Anybody else?
Omar?
I guess I had to talk. I'm not really in love with the new changes, and I don't buy the. First I want to say that I will represent anyone in my community, it will be a privilege for me to represent whoever in the community, in history or any other area of the community. My comment is not even related to that. I don't want to represent anyone in my community. I just want to make that clear. What I don't buy is that some people are confused, but then the people in history are not going to be confused. So we're going to split the street in 2 different prison there, and I guess the people from history, they're not going to be confused, but people in Terrence View, they're confused now, being voting for 10 years in the same precinct. But I'm not here to object it. Whatever this committee will decide is the right map, I will be in favor of it.
Okay.
We agree that 2 is the most affected because I know 1, even my district got changed a little bit, but it's not as bad.
Yeah, actually, Dan, I don't think yours changed at all.
Well, yeah, that changed, wasn't it? It was at Holly.
No, but it went back to Holly Circle.
Oh, I misunderstood that. Okay, yeah, you're right.
It was going to change, but then it went back to Holly Circle. So your precinct, I don't think has a single change in it.
I like what happened down on the bottom there on Hendricks for 3. So
that's what it was.
I thought we did something there. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, see, this is what it is now,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what it is gonna be. Yeah, yours is the only one that hasn't changed,
Okay.
which is good. Anyway, sorry.
Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts?
JP, do you have any thoughts? Is he there?
Yes.
Having some difficulty just unmuting. So I think you can hear me now.
Yes.
Uh, I think this is a very creative solution to understanding the boundaries of the various areas as best as can be done. So Tom, hats off to you for the suggestion. As Omar had said, Councilor Gomez, my apologies, Councilor Gomez had said, any of us, I'm sure, would be happy to represent anyone in the city. And I think in many ways we feel, although the precinct councilors, that we do represent everyone in the city when we vote, when we deliberate, as well as the at-large councilors. So that being said, the changes where the south side of West Street it goes into precinct 1, I think that makes sense to use the boundary by the river, Barb. If
That actually was the boundary up till 10 years ago.
right, so that had been the boundary. Now it returned to that. The East Street splitting East Street is interesting, and I'm sure folks will have to get used to that. So I'm comfortable with the changes. I wonder, Tom, if you could reflect in any way about the demographic changes and how that plays out.
Well, so first of all, I just want to say, I don't think any of us think that what happened with East Street is ideal, but East Street was already split between multiple people because I have about a third of precinct 3 has about a third of East Street. Precinct 2 as part of East Street. So now it's precinct 1 picks up the north end of East Street for the last bit of it. It's not perfect. In general, if we're going to have some confusing stuff like that, my preference is for that confusing stuff to be located on the outskirts of town where the density is less, if that makes sense. I think that where the density is highest, it makes the most sense to keep things concentrated. And so for me, but that's just a completely arbitrary, like, that's my take on that. And you could just totally disagree. But for me, when I'm thinking about how to do stuff like that, that's just kind of my bit, is I think, like, you know, the core neighborhoods being coherent make more sense than the farther out of town, less dense, more auto oriented parts of town. I think it's not, I don't necessarily know if, like, East Street, for instance, has like a really, like, has the same sort of like neighborhood identity that New City has, or that the Mills have, or that the Plains have. So for me, it just seems like that makes, like, it's, nothing's going to be perfect. But anyway, that being said, in terms of demographics, it definitely, I mean, I don't think it like, we're certainly still within the sense, I mean, since the census drew the map, we're certainly within the census boundaries. I also just think, from what I've seen, from looking at like construction and building permits data and whatnot, I think, like, a lot, I don't think that in 10 years, any of, like, a lot of the places where places are being developed are going to be like, let me start with this. There's not a lot of property development at 3. There's not a lot of home building at 3. It's already very built out. Very, very little is being built there. There's no new cul-de-sacs or subdivisions. There's no redeveloped mills. There's no anything like that in the current boundaries of precinct 3. And so I think that, I mean, JP, actually, I'm sorry, could you, when you say demographically, like, what exactly are you hoping for me to speak on there?
Any socioeconomic data that you might use to analyze this? Or
Yeah,
to think
so-
about it. I thought that's what you, I'm sorry, I apologize. Kind of what you do in your work, isn't it?
It totally is what I do in my work, but the smallest unit of analysis that we have for looking at socioeconomic data on the sub-city level are census tracts. There are 3 census tracts in Easthampton. They do not obviously line up with our precincts. I can say 2 and 3 are pretty much one census tract, and then like 1 and part of 4 and 5 and part of 4 are the other 2 more, or no, that's not actually even exactly true. Like 2, well, anyway, it doesn't matter. The census tract, which is most of 3 and the and the new city part of 2, is by far the youngest, most diverse, and poorest part of the census tracts. And then the other 2, which make up 1, most of 4, and all of 5, and then a certain part of like 2 near Main Street, are much more affluent and much older and much more ethnically homogenous. But that is about all I can really say about, like, I don't have it down to the census blocked level, which is what I would need to actually like answer that question. Sorry, that's a long answer for basically saying.
Thank you for trying to address it. I just didn't know if there was any other rationale or any other ways of looking at it. So thank you for your analysis.
Dan, I see your hand.
I just wanted to tell Omar that I feel this is a good change. I know it changes a lot of residents in your precinct to a new precinct, but I like the fact that for the most part, we're using geographic boundaries. Lower Mill Pond, the rivers, and the neighborhoods are intact. Prior to this, I believe it was Everett Street. I don't know what that street is. It was split in half and a section was in one. I like this better because the neighborhoods are more contiguous, if that's the term to use. So I think people will get used to it. I know it's a major change though, but I think it's good for the future. And again, we can't touch this for 10 years. So,
and just so
I
we're
think Tom
clear,
is on to something in the sense of the neighborhoods. That's why I agreed with it anyway.
okay. And just so we're clear, Barb, the city will send out notification to people if their precincts have changed, right?
Yeah, in the past, yeah, anytime a precinct change, everybody who's affected would have to get notification. There was talk about it being done on the census, but like I was mentioning to Dan, I would almost rather hold off and notify people closer to the primary, because if I send this out like in February, they're gonna forget by September.
We do both?
What?
Can we do both?
We could,
Probably.
yeah, it'll delay the census a little bit, but that's okay.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, let's just let's just have that in discussion. But
Y-
unless
yeah.
there's anyone else who
Yep.
like has anything else to say, I think maybe we can just vote on this.
I move to accept version 2 as presented.
All right, I'll second that. So we've got a
Oh,
motion.
I'm on mute. You didn't hear myself.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I had a pause. I was like, all right, well, geez.
I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Cool. All right, so motion and a second. All in favor, Councillor Coniff,
Aye.
Councillor Rist.
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well. So motion passes. This was the only, I'm sorry, I skipped straight past minutes. Do we have
We
minutes?
didn't
from
have
last-
any. We didn't have
Oh, well then that's why I skipped past them.
any. Exactly. You knew.
All right,
Barbara,
well,
does
that's the
this
only
give you
thing.
I'm sorry, Tom.
Go ahead.
Does it give you sufficient time to get it to the council for next week?
Well, as soon as we log off of here, I'm going to send this right to the state. And I'm gonna hope that they get it to me as soon as possible, because I am like super busy right now. And we need to vote on it next week. So I'm gonna tell them that hopefully they can get it to me and I have time to review that legal description. Yep.
Well, it's already in the agenda. in the sense.
I know, but they have to get me the final maps and I have to look at the legal description and make sure it looks correct.
Right.
And I've got, 10 million things going on because of the election next week, but I'll do my best. I mean, it has to happen next week.
Well, as you said, if it's November 3rd, it's November 3rd. I mean, they're not gonna,
Well, I think, yeah, we need to have it done. So
okay, well.
I'm gonna
do
send
that.
it off as soon as we get off here and hopefully, judging by how quick they got back to me last week, hopefully it'll happen quickly again.
Got
Thank you
someone
for
who
your
comes
hard
into the
work.
office
That's
early.
excellent.
What?
I
What'd you
said
say,
thank
Dan?
you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I was saying they must have someone who comes into the office real early or stays up real late.
I know. I was impressed too.
Okay, well, thanks so much for, just
Move we
entertaining
adjourn?
this. Yes.
Second.
All right, motion a second. Councilor Rist,
Aye.
Councilor Coniff,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thanks, everybody.
Good night,
See you
everybody.
Okay.
soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.